Joe Anderson and Al Clopine of Pure Financial Advisors have the answers to your retirement plan. This is your money, your wealth.
Are you worried about having enough money in retirement? If you're like most, you are. But you can take that worry and change it into action. So you don't necessarily have to be worried about having enough. You can have the retirement of your dreams. Stick around over the next half an hour. We're going to give you step-by-step directions on how to have the retirement that you always dreamed of. Got a great show. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Welcome back. My name's Joe Anderson, president of Pure Financial Advisors. I'm with the big man, as always, Big Al Clopine. He'll be coming on in just a short second. But when you think about it, more and more people are approaching retirement and they are not prepared because they haven't done the planning. So let's get the planning done right now. That's what's on my mind today. Let's take a look at a few statistics. When you think about the public in retirement, one of the biggest concerns here is not having enough money in retirement. The number is 59%, 59%. Then you take a look, do I have enough money for health care? Can I have the money to pay off debt? It's all about money. And what you have to do is realize, okay, well, here, I have some fears. I have some worry. What do I need to do? What are the action steps to get me out of this worry? To figure out exactly what you need to do, let's bring on Mr. Big Al Clopine to help us out to dive in a lot deeper. Big Al? Clopine, you see the statistics. We've been talking about it for a while. Still 60% of people are worried. You know what? It's funny. The statistics say this. Before, the biggest worry in people's life was death. Now what? It's living too long. It's not having enough money and being a burden on someone else.
Well, Joe, that's absolutely right. So I'll tell you what, let's talk about not only how to stop worrying, but let's talk about having the lifestyle that you really want to in retirement. So it's all about making sure you have enough resources. How about how to retire rich, or at least have enough money to be able to do what you want to do? So there's 4 steps. We're going to dive in further, but those 4 steps, it starts with income potential. Make sure that you maximize your income potential, and we'll go over some ways to do that. Then you want to take a look at your spending. Yeah, unfortunately, some of you are spending too much. You might need to cut back here and there. And if you do that, then you can save more. And then your retirement all of a sudden takes on a whole different thing, right? And then finally, what is the final thing? Proper investments. Proper investments is the final thing.
You got to manage it right.
You do. But you got to have the right investments, Joe, because if you don't have the right investments, you really got nothing. And I'll tell you what, so today's show, this is all about changing your retirement for the better. This is good stuff.
Right. I mean, it's just small, simple steps that people need to take to make sure that they can retire rich. I mean, whatever that word is. It doesn't necessarily have to be dollars and cents, but if you're happy in retirement, that's the key.
Right.
And if you do a little bit of planning, you're going to be there. We also got Dave Cook on today.
Oh, I can't wait.
He's going to get into proper investing now.
Yes,
the thing that you forgot.
I know, right? I had to look down.
You got to look. Yeah, you got to figure
Good
out.
thing I have a paper, because I can only remember 3 things at a time.
There's your notes. Well, let's dive in. Let's take a look at, all right, maximize income. How the heck do you maximize your income? Well, there's a lot of different things that you can do.
Yeah, I'd start, no matter what you are, become an expert in your profession. And if you're an accountant, become a CPA. If you're a financial planner, become a certified financial planner. If you are an administrator, maybe you become an office administrator where you're supervising other people. That's going to maximize your income potential better than anything else. Joe, another thing too is retiring late. A lot of people think that they ought to be retiring at age 62, maybe age 65, but now 66 to 70 is really the better time to retire.
Well,
right?
I mean, we're living a lot longer, right? So, and you don't necessarily, the goal is always, hey, let me retire at 62, 65. Now you might want to push it out to age 70 because there's a lot of good things that can happen. Your Social Security, of course, is going to increase. You're not going to dip into your investments. You can save a little bit more money. And then a lot of people are still working in retirement. So if you take a look, all right, well, what do you do, right? So maybe you retire from your 9-to-5 job, but then you find some passion or you do different things. We have a clip here of things that more and more people are doing once they hit that retirement age, and guess what? They're not retiring, they're still working.
The golden years not only look like this, for a growing number of people, it looks like this. One of the most dramatic shifts shows more baby boomers are staying on the job. A striking surge. 40% of workers 55 and older decided to work rather than retire between 2001 and 2014. A recent report by Career Builder shows that surgeons rank among the highest to retain their jobs, with more than 30% of surgeons being 55 plus. Their median hourly earning is just short of $100. Members of the clergy are more likely to be older than any other occupation, with more than 46% of them having passed their 55th birthday. The hourly earnings are a little more than $21 an hour. Whether you delay retirement because you need to financially or you just love your job, the workplace will be more gray.
That is true, and that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing at all because it gives you purpose. It's a reason to get up. So clergy, that's what we need to do after we hit our 70s, right?
We could do that.
Yeah.
But you find people that retire younger, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, here, I'm going to play golf every day. But guess what? They find boredom. So working later is not necessarily a bad thing. I remember when people want to work, hey, I want to retire at age 55. Well, don't have that as the goal. It's nice, but still you might want to have purpose in life, and work gives a lot of purpose to a lot of people. And if you take a look at working a little bit longer, there's a lot of different things that really helps out when you do extend your retirement a little bit longer.
Yeah, so let's look at the dollars and cents. So here's someone retiring early, normal age, and later. So age 50, you start saving at age 35, you save $10,000 per year. Let's assume a 7% rate of return. You end up with $250,000. Not bad, right? But how about normal retirement age 65? Same savings, but now you got $950,000. And Joe, look at this. Age 70, you work 5 more years. Now you got $1.4 million. It's that compounding of dollars that makes all the difference, really.
Right, and it's just pushing it out a couple of more years and then doing the appropriate planning. Like 70 in Southern California is like the new 50. So it's not a bad thing. So a lot of you might consider working a little bit longer. But then you have to control your spending, right? So if you're a little bit behind the 8 ball, you have to take a look at what you're spending. No one likes the budget word, but you want to make sure that you pay yourself first. What does that mean? You put money into your 401ks, your IRAs, your retirement plans, whatever saving vehicles that you have. Pay yourself first before anyone else. You want to spend less than your income. The wealthiest people in this country don't necessarily make millions of dollars. Here's a simple secret, is that they spend less than what they earn. You know, so if you pay yourself first, spend less than what you earn, you're on the right track. And I know it gets difficult because it feels like we're running paycheck to paycheck, but if you do simple things, take a look at your situation, I think you can get on a better track.
Yeah, and the other thing, Joe, really is tracking your spending, making sure that you know what's going on, because it's real easy to say, you know what, I'm going to spend a little bit less. But
it's easier said than done, of course it is.
You have to know what you're doing, and you have to track what you're doing so you can make changes as necessary. And when you look at different spending levels, you can get a sense of how much more you can end up with in retirement. Take a look at this. Now here's somebody, first of all, these are all age 35 where you begin investing, working to age 65. You got 30 years. So first person spends 95% of their income, okay? And they ended up with about $475,000. Not bad, but look at the person saving 90%, or in other words, or spending 90%, saving 10%, $950,000, and the person only spending 85% of their income ends up with $1.4 million. Just sometimes some very little changes you can end up with a lot more dollars for retirement, and that really is the difference between just getting by and having the kind of retirement that you want, Joe. It's really a big deal.
Hey, we got to take a break. When we get back, we want to get into the cost of procrastination, because that's one of the biggest things, right? It's like there's always tomorrow, there's always tomorrow, there's always tomorrow. Guess what? Tomorrow's here, so you want to start saving. We also got Dave Cook on board. We're going to talk to Mr. David Cook about how do you build the overall portfolio? What are some key things that you have to look at when you construct a portfolio? You do not want to miss that, and we'll be back in just a second, so don't go anywhere. You're watching Your Money, and it's Your Wealth. Welcome back to the program, folks. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson, Big Al Clopine, talking about how to get a worry-free retirement. What are some steps that you can do to make sure that you can get the worry out of your retirement? But let's go to the true-false question to see how you did here.
If I work part-time in retirement, my Social Security benefits will always be reduced. Joe, that word always, that typically means false, and that's false this time as well. Because here is the situation. First of all, if you're full retirement age, which is age 66 for most of you, you can work as much as you want. There's no reduction of benefits. If you're younger than full retirement age, you may have some of those benefits reduced. And right now it's about $16,000. If you make more than that, you will have some of your benefits reduced. Except for that final year, Joe. You can make a little bit more. But just be aware, if you're going to work, you might, into your late years, 66, 70, and so forth, you may you don't want to take Social Security till at least full retirement age, if not till age 70.
Right, yeah. If you take it at 62, well, first of all, you get a 25% reduction of your benefit, and if you're still working, every $2 earned, they take $1 back. Anything over roughly $16,000. So in most cases, it doesn't make sense to take your Social Security benefits early if you're still working. Speaking of taking them early, well, let's talk about a procrastination now, because that's probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks that people have, is that they always push things out to a later date.
Well, Joe, that's exactly right. And really what we're getting to is saving. You know that the earlier you save, the better. So let's take a look at this here. So if you start saving at age 25, look at this. You only have to save about 6.4% of your income to be able to be okay in retirement. And of course, there's a lot of assumptions here which may or may not apply to you. This is just an example. If you start at age 40, you're looking at 14.5% is what you need to save to have a decent retirement. And age 55, if you start at age 55, look at this. You got to save 25% of your income. So starting early is really much better.
Yeah, without question. You know, and everyone's retirement is going to be a little bit different, but I guess the point of that slide is that, hey, everyone knows that starting right now is the key. So, Al, let's get into savings.
All right, Joe. So when we think about savings, it's like, well, what does this really mean in dollars and cents? And we've got a little example for a 30-year-old. And let's say they're going to work till age 65. Annual savings of $10,000 per year, 7% rate of return. Look at that. $1.4 million is what they end up saving, let's say, in their 401k account. Now, if they do the same thing at 40, that's 10 years less. Look at this. So $10,000 per year. Now they're ending up with $630,000, and at age 50, $250,000. So it's not really a mystery. The sooner you save, the better.
So you want to utilize all the plans that you have, and if you can max out that 401k plan, right? You get a pre-tax deduction going in. It grows 100% tax deferred, and it's out of sight, out of mind. It's an easy way to pay yourself first. So if you take a look at the numbers, they grow fairly quickly.
They do. And I was going to show an example here. Here it is. Okay, so age 30. Now, what if you save the maximum into your 401k? You work till age 65. Your company matches $3,000, 7% per year, estimated rate of return. Look at this. $2.9 million is what you end up saving. And you work 5 more years, same assumptions, but just 5 more years of working, and now it's $4.2 million. So if you want to retire rich and have plenty of money to do what you want to do, clearly you want to start earlier. But that's not the only thing. You also have to know how to invest the money, and you need to know what considerations in investing, because a lot of people think that they can control their investments. They time this, they buy that, and Joe, that's not really the case. There's a few things you can control and other things that you cannot control.
Well, I mean, with the assumptions that you're using here, Al, it's a 7% growth rate, right? So if I'm sitting in cash, I can't achieve a 7% growth rate, right? So you have to take some risk in the overall portfolio. How do you construct it? What are some factors that you need to look at are the key components? So you save into your 401k plan, but then what's the next step? How do you invest it? So we brought in Dave Cook. He's a certified financial planner. He's a senior advisor at Pure Financial Advisors. He's going to break it down in real simple terms. David, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So when you look at building a portfolio, let's just go high level. What should our viewers be concerned about? Or, I mean, what are some starting points that they should look at when they start constructing the portfolio?
Yeah, well, you mentioned procrastination and you mentioned, target rates of return. If you are, say, in the 25% tax bracket right now and you assume a 3% rate of inflation, you need to earn 4.75 just to be even. And so that means you do need to take a little risk. You have to understand the type of risk that's out there. A lot of times we become kind of fast food consumers of information, and that we perceive all the possibilities of all the events happening in the world as having direct impacts in our portfolio today. Well, I think a lot of times, most of us, we need to deal with, like within life, or what are the probabilities of these events happening? And what are the probabilities of driving these portfolios down to permanent lows and staying there? So the first step is really understand the nature of the risk that you're willing to take, but also that you need to take to have that growth. Second is the asset allocation model is probably the most important decision an investor can make is what is your mix of investments? What's your asset allocation? Because the result of a really good asset allocation is diversification. We hear that word all over the place. It's like, how do you diversify against all the probabilities of these events happening? And that's through asset allocation.
Right. I mean, you bring up a good point because, I mean, the possibility of me getting in a car wreck, I mean, it's possible, but is it probable?
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to lose every last dime in my 401k? Sure, but is it probable? So you want to take a look at the probabilities of things and making sure that you mitigate that so you have a higher probability of success.
Yeah.
So it's taking a look at taking as little risk as possible with the overall portfolio to maintain your goals, but then also make sure that you're diversified. I think that's the only free lunch in town. What are some other things that people should look at?
Well, it's, you know, once you understand the composition, your asset allocation, then you have to start filling that asset allocation with different investments. So what you have to be very mindful is controlling the cost of those investments. I mean, those investments can range from 0.2% to 4% on any individual investment. So it becomes critical to understand and controlling the cost of those investments. And a lot of times, if I'm talking with a client and they've got some sort of investment they don't understand, if they can't explain to me the structure of the fees that they're paying, they probably shouldn't own that.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at the lack of transparency, right? So a lot of individuals have a portfolio, but probably 1 or 2% actually know the internal cost, the fees, and the construction of that overall portfolio. Because if you have a 2% cost in your fund or whatever investment that you choose, that's a huge drag on your overall return. And when someone's close to retirement that hasn't maybe saved enough, they need every last ounce of return that they possibly can earn, right?
Absolutely.
And another thing is that what we talk about is taxes. I mean, I think if you can control the things that you can control, and taxes is one of them. If you do some appropriate planning, if you can save money in tax, that's added return to your overall investment.
Sure. I mean, it all goes back into the total return of any investment. It's, you know, we talk about municipal bonds, Roth IRAs, different things that have a much better tax efficiency, and that becomes return back into your pocket. So understanding the tax code of what's happening, understanding how to make sure that when you do need to start taking an income stream in retirement, that's tax efficient. You know what sort of income you need, but you also know how it's going to be taxed. Because that's one thing I think we understand is, you know, we are taxed in everything that we do. And if you could save just a little bit, that's going to put extra dollars back in your pocket for sure.
Yeah, so just kind of wrapping things up here is that, all right, you want to control the risks, right? That's something that you can control.
Yep.
How much money you have in stocks and bonds or cash or whatever. Then you want to take a look at diversify. Don't try to pick one stock or time the markets. You want to make sure that you have multiple investments over several different areas. Then you want to control the cost, right? If I can control and save a couple of % on my fees and costs, and then go ahead and do some tax planning, hire Big Al to help me out with this. All right, now you can control the things that you can control, and that is the big component here, because then you control your head, right? When things get a little bit shaky out there, markets are at all-time highs, we're seeing some volatility. You want to make sure that you follow these simple steps to have a successful retirement. Don't go anywhere. We got to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to flip the show to you. We're going to answer your email questions, so you don't want to miss it. The show's called Your Money, and it's Your Wealth. Hey, welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson here, Big Al Clopine hanging out, talking about what are some things that you needed to consider or to do when you want to retire rich. But you have to get educated, so let's see how you did on this true-false question.
I like this one. If I save $13 per day starting at age 25, I'll be a millionaire when I retire at age 65, given a 7% rate of return. And the answer to that question, believe it or not, is absolutely true.
Well,
Everybody
I mean, of course
can
it is.
be a millionaire.
I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, right, $13 a day, it had to have been true. I mean, that's just a setup if I've ever seen it in my life. If you say $13.47 every day, right?
Yeah, but it shows for just some minimal amounts, if you start early, you can be a millionaire too.
13 bucks a day when you're 25? That's a lot of money.
You can pull that off. I think you can pull that off.
All right. Well, let's kind of wrap up, and then let's flip the show over to you, the viewers, and answer your email questions. So we looked at a couple of different things when you want to retire rich, right? It's just maximizing your income potential, right? Spend no more than 90% of your income. Save early, right? And spend less and catch up if you're starting late. And then you just want to make sure that you get education on the appropriate investment strategy. Those are some simple things that you can do. I know it's simple, but it's not easy because there's a lot of you that are a little bit behind. But what you want to do is make sure that you get a game plan in place and get motivated to take action. Let's go to the email questions. Al, what do you got there?
Yeah, let's get into them. So here's the first one, and this is from Anna in Encinitas. I have about $20,000 in credit card debt. Should I pay off the debt first before I get into my 401k, save into my 401k? And that's a question that we get all the time, Joe. And I would say, first of all, a lot of credit card debt has very high interest rates. So if you're very high interest rates, yeah, you want to get that thing paid off as soon as possible. But don't forget, with your 401k, your company usually has a match. In other words, if you put in a couple $1,000s, they may match that and put in a couple $1,000s. So you probably actually want to do both, maybe enough to get up to your match, and certainly use all the extra savings to pay off that credit card just as soon as you can. But Joe, a lot of times people get into this mindset, I'm going to have to pay off my debt before I start saving. Oops, I have a kid, I'm going to have to buy the furniture, you know, all this and that, and then they never get around to saving. I think it's actually better to start saving right off the bat. Just be smart about how you allocate your resources.
Right. Well, I mean, what's the number one lesson is pay yourself first, right? So you want to make sure that you pay yourself before anyone else. And then people get into the cycle where it's like, okay, well, here, let me pay off the debt, and they never build a cash reserve. And then something else happens, right? And then they have more debt, and more debt, and more debt. So you got to stop the cycle, pay yourself first, and you'll be better off. Let's go to the next question.
Yeah, let's do the next email question. So here we go. This is from Stephen Bay Park. My wife and I are both in our 60s. We have about $500,000 saved in retirement accounts. What level of risk should we be taking to grow our portfolio, but also maintain our nest egg? And wow, this is a question that we get all the time, and really everyone should be thinking about.
So every question is what we get all the time?
Yeah, we do, all the time. In fact, I got this just 2 days ago, as a matter of fact. And I would say, Steve, we need a little bit more information.
Right.
We need to know what sort of spending that you are planning in retirement. We need to know what sort of fixed income, Social Security, pension amounts, and so forth. And then we need to do a little calculation. What rate of return that do you need to make all this work? But I would tell you this, just generally, nowadays people are living into their late 80s and 90s, so you can't go 100% safe. You're going to have some risk in your portfolio just to keep up with inflation and have a little bit of growth.
Right. I mean, it's a tough question to answer, but the number one goal should be preservation of capital. You don't necessarily want to speculate with that money. You've done a great job. You've saved $500,000. You're approaching that retirement deadline. You want to preserve the capital, but you also need conservative growth to make sure that you outpace inflation and taxes. So that's where I think planning really comes into play, to know exactly what you should be doing with your money instead of following the hot tip or the hot mutual fund. Al?
Right, absolutely. So let's get to our next email question. This is from Lisa in Bonita, and she asks, I want to start saving for my 8-year-old's college fund. Is it better to put the money in an education fund or some other type of investment fund? Joe, this is also a common question that we get, and I got this about 3 days ago. So I would say that the best place to save money in a college fund would be a Section 529 plan. Why? Because when you put the money into that plan and it grows, that growth is tax-free as long as it's used for education. But here's a little tip for you. Don't put too much into it, because if you put too much into it, when you take that money out, you'll have to pay tax on the gain and get penalized. So be careful as to how much you put in there.
Well, you know, Al, our president came out too and also said that potentially 529 plans could be taxed. He rebutted that fairly quickly.
Yes.
But they are great plans. They grow tax-free, and then if you use them for qualified education, you can utilize those dollars. But if you have multiple kids, you don't necessarily want to have too much money in these accounts. What Al alluded to is that sometimes if you have too much money, it's never a bad thing, but it might be a bad thing if it's inside that 529 plan, because you get taxes and penalties if it's not used for education. All right, that's it for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week. We got a lot more to discuss. If you are concerned about taxes, retirement, investments, real estate, whatever, this is the show to watch. For Big Al Clopine, my name's Joe Anderson. I want to say thanks, Dave. Dave Cook. Have a wonderful weekend. You just watched Your Money, and it's your wealth.